Can I go?
Yeah.
All right. So hello everyone. This is Carlos again speaking. I'm sitting at a cafe today here in Odense with a very good friend of mine, professional squash player, Cameron. Cameron has had his highest position in the squash professional tour as number 11 in the world, and we're just here for a relaxed chat. So Cameron, thanks very much for making time and for the business community out there.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Cameron, first thing I wanted to ask you is about being a foreign in Denmark. When did you get here? How did you meet your wife? And what's the story behind it?
Okay, so I've been a professional squash player for 18 years, and my wife, Lena Hansen, was a professional squash player for 15 years. So we met on the PSA World Tour.
Right.
So we met playing tournaments around the world. She's Danish, so we've been together for over 9 years now, and we've lived here in Odense, Denmark for 3 years.
Very nice. And what's been your experience about living in Denmark? As well, first you were living in Holland. Maybe you can comment on this, right?
Yeah, so we lived together in Holland for 3 or 4 years before we sort of wanted to start a family and move on to the next chapter in our lives. So we decided to move to Denmark to be closer to Lena's family.
Cool.
My family's in Australia, so that was a long way to go. So once we decided to want to start a family and Lena finished playing professionally,
Okay.
we moved here and sort of made a life for ourselves here.
Right.
And it's been a good 3 years. It's definitely different to Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Lena's lived in a lot of different countries, so she's used to moving abroad and experiencing different cultures. But for her to come back here was quite nice to be around family.
Right.
But yeah, for me it was Denmark's different to Holland as well. I think raising a family, I'd probably prefer to raise a family here in Denmark. Not only because Lena's family's here, but I think just the way the system is here, I think it's really positive and really, it's really good to have a young family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So you lived in Holland. Where did you live before Holland? It was Australia?
I was in England for about 2 years before that,
Okay.
and Australia before that. So I've lived away from Australia for about 12 years.
Nice. As a foreign in Denmark, like myself, what are the positive things you think about living in Denmark, and what are the real challenging things for any foreigner? I can comment on that as well. It's not a problem. But it's,
I think one
That's
of
fine.
the challenging things would be something as simple as in Australia, if you're having a barbecue or if you're outside having beers or drinks or something, if you see someone that walks past that you probably just yell at them and say, "Oi, do you want to have a beer? Do you want to join the barbie? Come on over," type thing. Like it's almost a free for all.
Right.
Whereas I found here in Denmark, everybody's very nice and very friendly, and if it's in the same situation, you'll have a chat, but you might not be invited to join because you're not officially invited.
Mm-hmm.
So that type of thing is probably the main thing that I've picked up on. Just casual lunches and coffees.
Spontaneous, right? More
Yeah.
like off the
Probably
schedule.
like Brazil, a little
Yeah,
bit
yeah,
of
so
Australia.
much. Yeah.
And it's just in Australia and probably Brazil, it's just very easy to join up, very spontaneous, and join someone for a beer or a coffee or some food, where it's a little bit more closed off here in Denmark. But it's not a deal breaker. It's not something that I get down about or anything. That's just the way it is.
Cool.
And the positive, just the whole system, the way people live. It's a very simple way of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Having kids and the help you get from the government and the community, I think it's very good. And everyone's very, very tight with their family.
Yeah.
Which I'm tight with my family in Australia, and it's good to see that it's a similarity here. The families really stick together, and sometimes they don't want to move, but luckily for my wife, she doesn't mind moving around. But yeah, that's probably a couple of things.
Cool. Just two things to wrap this up. It's a quick and short interview today. I noticed that, well, you had an injury recently, right? And one of the things that really impressed me about you as an athlete is that you never stopped going to the gym, right? So you were there. It was probably a low period. I don't know how many injuries you've had throughout your life, but you were there. It was winter time. It was shitty, and you're still like doing your routine. So I want to ask you about, the importance of having routines when you're like a professional athlete or when you're a business person. Same, right? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think routines and habits are hugely important, and I think the way to get that is just your mindset.
Yeah.
So going back from when I was training, when I first started out on the pro tour, it all comes from your mindset. So when you go to training, you're not taking shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
You're going there. If you're doing 10 400-meter sprints, you're not cutting any corners. You're not cutting one step off the track.
Yeah.
It's whatever you do it properly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the mindset that I sort of got from back in my early days of training definitely helped carry me through the lows of the injury and the recovery process. And I think once you can form habits, I found for me that's such a big thing.
Yeah.
So the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of rehab after my operation was pretty brutal. It was, I'd go down to training and I couldn't really get on court. I wasn't allowed to get on court. I wasn't allowed to do certain training things. So once I got my head around the fact that I was just going to go down and just start doing it, once I got started, it was fine. But yeah, like you said, it's the middle of winter. It's raining, sometimes snowing. You're out there riding your bike to the squash club, basically on one leg. You can't do anything. It was tough, but then once you get your routines, once that forms a habit, I find that's half the battle. That's more than half the battle. So once I could do that on a daily basis, and once it became a habit, it was I wouldn't even think about it. I just every morning or mid-morning I'd sort of, okay, it's time to go down to the club, rain, hail or shine, I go down, do the habit, and that's definitely what helped get me through.
Cool. Last question. In one of your episodes, by the way, he also has a podcast with Daryl Selby, which is another professional tennis player. Squash player, sorry.
Come on, mate.
Yeah. Sorry. We give the link away. Also so people can start following you. I want to ask you, you guys mentioned about mental health, and that's something very important, hugely important, something that I'm trying to become more aware of nowadays. And how do you stay sane?
Sometimes it's difficult.
Beers? Gin tonic?
I think all of the above. I think it's hugely important to have a balance.
Yeah.
So throughout my whole career, I've made sure I've had a balance in squash and away from squash. So some players eat, sleep and breathe squash. That's their career. That's what they do. It's everything. I have a lot of interests, like doing things outside of squash. So I tried there for 1 or 2 years when I was younger, just to eat and breathe squash the whole time, and I found my squash went downhill, and I didn't get bored with it, but I just hit a plateau and it just wasn't working for me. So I was like, okay, I like surfing, so I started surfing more. I follow a lot of sports. I follow the cricket, the golf sometimes. I play golf, going out for coffees with friends, having beers with friends. So I don't give myself a strict diet. I don't give myself a strict routine of what I must do every day. I'll make sure I get my training done, which is the priority. But then once I've got sort of done the job, got my training done, I like to relax and do what I feel like. Okay. And I think that's helped me sort of perform at my best over the years, especially in high stress situations or high pressure situations in matches or tournaments where they might be representing Australia, and it comes down to your match in order for the team to get through to the next round. And I think having that balance throughout my whole career has enabled me to keep a relaxed state of mind on court as well.
Nice. So what is a typical high stress situation? Is it representing your country, uh, matches that are extremely tense, and how about sponsorship deals and that kind of stuff? Because sponsors, they might also demand results, right?
Yeah. With the sponsorship side of things, I talk to my sponsors how I'd talk to anyone. I don't try and get stressed out about anything. I'll be myself, and I talk to them, and they can see that that's who I am. I'm not trying to put on anything, and I think that you get that in return as well, and they're quite real with you. So that's definitely one thing, and I find the most pressure and the most excitement when I pull on the Australian jersey, put on the Australian shirt, whether it be the Commonwealth Games or representing the Australian men's team, which is on later this year in November. It's sort of, you're representing your whole country.
Yeah.
So you go into the match knowing that, and then sometimes on top of that, there's been times when I have to win a certain game or a certain match in order for our whole team to progress. So they're the types of situations that you sort of come across.
Very nice. Cameron, that was great. Thanks.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Thanks.